The mermaid came from when my husband and I went on one of our first dates. He said I look like a mermaid. I used to have like white blonde hair, and remember the Splash, the movie, a Daryl Hannah had. And so that kind of mermaid thing stuck.
Hi everyone, it's Leah from Phoenix Magazine. I'm here for another episode of our Meet Your Maker series where we interview artists, artisans, and makers of all stripes about their process, their background, and where to find their products now. So today we're here at the High with Keri Mosier, who's a talented jewelry artist. Hi Keri, how's it going?
Hi, good.
Good.
Nice to meet you in person.
Yes, you as well. I feel like I know you from social media all these years.
Well, I'm glad that my presence is...
It's so nice to be together now. You and I are both vaccinated, so we are going to be taking our masks off.
Carefully.
And revealing.
And I have a mask strap on.
Yes, I love it. So is this part of your collection?
Yeah, I started doing these just literally because, there's one of the artists here was walking around with his mask on a dirty little string, and he would be he would take, and I'm like, what are you doing? That's so gross. And I'm like, let me make you something. And so the first one I made was kind of similar to this, just like a leather one for him without the pearl. I think he didn't like the pearl, but he kept saying, oh, this is so great, you should make more. And then I had a woman come in whose name I cannot remember, but she's like, can you make me a chain mask strap? And I was like, oh yeah. So I made it, and then it's just, everybody wanted one.
Wow.
So my new thing is, because there may be a day when we don't need the mask straps anymore, is you can take the end of the mask strap, the mask chain, it's just like a hook, and hook it onto eyeglass holders. It's just like a little rubber figure eight. So I've been telling people,
very nice,
come in and I'll give you one so that you can what's the word? Transform your mask strap into an eyeglass holder. And also, you can wear it as a necklace too. And then these are just more casual, like, a lot of kids that had to wear masks to school. This has been really, it's made out of tie-dye t-shirts that I make, and then I cut the strips and then make those.
Tie-dye is having a major moment right now. It's so back.
Cannot get enough of making tie-dye. My daughter is like, enough with the tie-dye.
So funny.
I keep making her shirts, but she likes them.
Well, I know you've been a jewelry artist for almost your whole life. I was reading a little on your website, and you called yourself a child laborer, which made me laugh.
I wrote that as a joke, and then I left it because a couple people thought it was funny, and I thought, well, I'm just going to leave it.
Funny.
But it's sort of true, and I sort of embellished. My mom was always very artistic and savvy, and she was trying to come up with ways just to make some extra money.
Sure.
And there used to be a thing here in Phoenix. I don't think it's here anymore, but it's like the swap meet at the Greyhound racetrack. Was called Park and Swap.
Oh,
this is in the 70s, or late 70s. But I liked making the jewelry. So she would have us sit at the table, and my brother and sister would be like, no, I don't want to do this. And then I enjoyed it. And she did a little bit. She didn't do it for very long. She just bought some supplies and did it for fun. And then I came across all of her goods in high school and started making stuff for myself. And then my friends would say, oh, I want, and then I'm like, I'll make you one.
Yeah.
And then I was waiting tables at the time, and I just started displaying my jewelry while I was waiting tables and selling things off my neck.
Awesome.
Which they were okay with.
Very cool. And so is that when you decided to turn it into a business? And how long have you been doing that?
So that was in, I was 21 then. Well, I was 21 when when I made my first sale. And that would have been my first big sale where I thought, oh, maybe I actually can do this. I went to visit my friend in Chicago, my best friend, and we went to the Chicago Blues Fest. And she said, bring all your jewelry, and I was like, eh. And so I had it all in little baggies. And we were sitting on her living room floor, and her roommate, every time I would pull something out, both of them would be like, oh my God, that's so cute. And
I'm like, girl stamp of approval.
Yeah, and I was like, really? I was like, are they just saying this? I didn't believe them. So she's like, you should bring them to the Blues Fest, let's sell them. And so we made a board. I think we had help from the neighbors. We made this wooden board with nails on it and a handle. And I walked around the Chicago Blues Fest. I sold every single thing. Wow. Sold all of it. I made enough to pay for my ticket home.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay. Now how can I do this not at a concert where I'm drinking beers and loosened up, it's a whole different story when you're approaching stores and stuff.
Sure.
So I think my first my first sale to a store was at the Hub in Fashion Square, which that was in '92, I believe, I think. And that was sort of good timing because the owner used to come into the same restaurant where I used to wear my jewelry. And so I would like bring his coffee and be like, would you like more coffee?
Yes. Like also this.
Yeah. And I finally made a very small sale to him, but it was kind of a big, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And back then there were no shows.
Sure.
It was like
no Instagram to network
no
with.
Instagram,
Yeah.
no website, no Facebook, and so the only way I could sell things is, I thought, to go to stores, and I was so like clueless about all of that. I didn't know what they were looking for,
Right.
like what the right answers were to the questions that they all would ask, like, do you sell anywhere else? And you would think, I thought, that the more places you sell, the better. So I'd say, yeah, I sell to this place, and I sell to that place.
Like, I'm a very in-demand lady.
Yeah, and they'd be like, okay, no, because I didn't understand, because you have like now I know you sell to one store in Phoenix, this part, and maybe one store in Chandler,
Like
and then
exclusivity.
yeah,
kind of.
yeah. So it's not like a better thing to spread yourself too thin. So that's kind of like where I started, is selling to stores, and that's like the hardest thing ever.
Yeah.
Is approaching stores.
Yeah. You have to have that kind of hustler mentality, and
I do have that mentality. Like I've always made things to sell. Like even when I was a little kid, I would like paint rocks and go around and sell them to neighbors. So I've always had that sort of like, what can I make? What can I sell? So, but it's different when you're approaching these stores, because they would give off the feeling that like they don't need you, and they're doing you a big favor, which I think is a different vibe now, because I think they understand.
yeah. That's so interesting. Can you talk a little bit about the evolution of the creative scene here in Phoenix, and how it feels to be a designer now versus then?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's changed a ton. It feels now that like everybody is making things and selling them, making
everybody
jewelry.
has an Etsy or whatever.
Everybody. And it used to be, if I was going to do some sort of like art show or craft show, as they used to be called,
Right.
That I would pretty much be the only person that makes jewelry. I was pretty like confident at one point, like there's not going to be anybody else there. It's just going to be me and maybe somebody that like makes like slide-on beads, like where you
like those woven
like
little hemp bracelets or
right,
whatever.
or like you choose your child's name and they slide on the beads, that kind of thing. So I would do shows like that, and it used to be I would do shows all the time. I would do like a couple shows a week, and I worked out of my house in my bedroom in a little tiny here's
studio.
Yeah, here's a picture of
wow.
That's not even the oldest incarnation.
And
right
look at
here.
you wearing a mask.
I know.
even then.
I was such a trendsetter. That was actually just like my husband, when I used to do stuff, he'd say, "Wear your glasses," and because when I would cut metal, it would go flying through the air.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it had happened like maybe once, and so now I actually have to wear glasses.
Yeah.
I have to wear readers, so I protect my eyes now. But I used to have to wear those big goggles, and I'm not sure. I think the mask was just like for show, because I thought it'd be entertaining. But yeah, the scene is changed a lot, and I think that I don't remember when it changed, but I remember doing an interview about Craftiteria and I remember having this conversation about that, and that was like 10 years ago, I think, or 9 years ago, and I was saying how it used to be, there'd be little craft shows, and there'd be somebody that would have like yarn animals, and then like grandmas with things that they knit, and
Very homespun.
yeah, and so it wasn't like where you would go to buy nice jewelry. But it's changed. It's totally changed. And so now, I think it actually, right before the pandemic, actually probably like a couple years before the pandemic, I think things got a little bit crazy with the shows, because I think, I'm not talking about any show in particular, some shows tend to sort of take advantage of the artists. It's like, I'm going to charge them this much, and I'm going to have them all in one place. All of the artists that could literally be at any place. So it's just like, I just feel like, I kind of feel like the pandemic is going to kind of kill the show season, or the there's going to be something new that comes out of it. I don't know what. I mean, I'm lucky because now I have a studio where I can sell. And I'll still do a couple shows, but like just shows are exhausting. I'm too old to do shows now, I think, anyway.
It just seems like so much work.
It's
and if you
so
don't
much
hit your
work.
marks that you need to make it worth it for you,
Right.
you kind of have to analyze that.
Right. And it's physically just so much work, like hauling all your things in. And it didn't used to seem that way, but I just remember the last few years that I did shows, I'd be like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I'm so physically exhausted. So it is nice to have a place. I mean, I'm really lucky to be here at the Hive, where I can, make my stuff and sell my stuff. And I wouldn't have been able to do this a few years ago anyway, just, having kids at home.
And when did you move into this space? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So this particular space, there's a new owner, and she kind of revamped the whole place. Okay. So I'm kind of within another boutique called Composite, but I do have doors that close, so I can be my own store.
Right.
But over here is part of Composite Boutique, and then there's a collage escape, which is like an art collage books, and they'll be doing collage events here, and so it is kind of nice because it's I work well with like having other people to sort of bounce off of, so it's been nice to be able to work with somebody, because I can go out there and say to Tennille, who owns Composite, what do you think of this necklace?
Right. Kind of creative energy, and it seems like all of the businesses are local, so you guys all have kind of the same ethos.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's just a nice vibe. And when I was working out of my house, the only person I could ask is my husband. What do you think of this necklace? He'd be like, oh, it's nice.
Has he become quite the jewelry expert over the years, I imagine?
Yeah, he actually does have a little experience in it, because in the 90s he worked for a gem a dealer, manufacturer, just like a completely random job that he got. Cool. This is before I was really selling a lot. It now seems very odd, but at the time it was just like, oh, maybe I'll buy some beads from the place that he worked at. And then it ended up being a job he worked at for a few years. I even started working with him and traveling with him, selling beads to like gem shows all over the country. Neat. Which was a good way to learn about stones.
Yes, all aspects of the business, I'm sure. It's like fascinating.
And dealing with other designers that are like buying materials in the thousands. It was like, it was sort of inspirational, because like people really do this for a living.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about some of your products specifically, and also about the name of your brand. I neglected to mention earlier, but it's Mermaid.
Okay,
right?
So the Mermaid, originally my company was called Tierra Encanto, which means Enchanted Earth. It never really caught on. I would, like my friends would just say, oh, is that a new Keri piece, or is that a Keri?
A Keri original.
Right, so I actually thought about calling it Keri, but then that just seemed weird. And then the Mermaid came from when my husband and I went on one of our first dates. He said I look like a mermaid. I used to have like white blonde hair, and remember the Splash, the movie, Daryl Hannah had. And so that kind of mermaid thing stuck. And so, people always think that my name is like Meredith or something. Oh. But if I did Kermaid, it would sound like a drink.
Kermit the Frog.
Kermaid, yeah.
I like how it kind of incorporates like your last name, like Keri Mosier, and then Mosier Mayer. That was how I kind of.
Yeah, it really is one of those things that it's kind of the name now. But even still, people will just say Keri Mosier. Yeah. So I don't know how well it's worked. And then like this beautiful painting was gifted to me by Loomis Henry with the mermaid in it. So, and I'm not like a big mermaid person. Like I'm not like, oh, I love mermaids.
Not
but
like hashtag mermaid vibes.
Right, I know. But I do love that painting.
I like that sound. It's like very Billie.
It's Billie Holiday, as a mermaid. But then I started like all of a sudden people are giving me all these seashells and stuff, which I don't know, it's like I've started a collection that I didn't know I was collecting. So I have all seashells and like ocean things.
But it's like tastefully incorporated. It doesn't feel like a themed bathroom in here.
Oh, God,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like under the sea.
Right. Thank you.
Yes.
Like the abalone shell. I love these things.
Gorge.
And people like, I don't like these things that people bring me. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like I can't like trash it.
No, it's beautiful.
Can't bring it to Goodwill. And then it looks, with my shell book that I've had forever.
So yeah, so do you want to talk about maybe like the evolution of your making? Did you always do necklaces and then go into bracelets, or were you kind of doing everything all from the get-go?
When I started, I did a lot of beadwork, which I think is like what people usually tend to do when they start, like
Sure.
beads with a crimp on the end and the hook that you buy that's like way too expensive.
Right.
And so I did that a lot of beaded necklaces, and earrings were not in style then.
Yeah.
The 90s, which is weird. And so people would say, "Do you ever make earrings?" I'm like, "I don't do earrings."
It's all about the chokers in the
earrings
90s,
are not
right?
in style. I'm not going to do that. So it's just over the years, it's like everything. Like, why don't you make stretchy beaded bracelets? I'm like, I'm not going to make stretchy beaded. It's like I have changed over the years as to what I like. I mean, like there's things that I mean, like, I don't make anything that I wouldn't wear myself, rather than trying to like appeal to everybody, which I think is just a bad idea.
Right.
So that's just how I work. I don't really, my process is really just like, what do I like? You know, what would I wear?
What are you drawn to?
And I've been doing a lot of incorporating vintage pieces in, which started kind of like as an accident. And then there was like this rainbow, let me point to it over here. This little rainbow pendant. I had one that was similar that I got at this weird little antique store way up north. And they were vintage and they were round. And the woman at the front desk, I said, what's the story with these? Because I just was like, there was just like a few of them in there. And she's like, oh, they're vintage. And I'm like, do you know from when? And she's like, oh, from the 70s. And she personally had been selling them since the 70s. And she said that her and her husband had gone around to shows. And I was like, oh, I was like obsessed with these. I kept looking at them and then walking around the store and coming back and looking at them. I'm like, I'm just gonna get like 5. And so, and I bought 5 of these little vintage rainbow things that look pretty much like that, inlaid but round. And then I put them on my Instagram, and people were like, I want one, I want one, I want one. So I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to go get more. So I called that lady who doesn't have the best people skills. And I said, I was just in there a couple of days and I bought these rainbow. And she's like, yeah, I know who you are. And I'm like, how many more do you have? And she's like, I think she had like 30 or so. And so I sent my husband back up there, bought all of them, sold all of them. And then I found these online. I mean, there was only like, I think it's like 11 of them. So I started having this like, what other cool vintage pieces can I incorporate? And I have been collecting things forever that I thought I would never use. And now I'm like going through all my stuff, like, oh, I forgot about this. Or like, there's so many things that I haven't thrown out, and I'm glad, because they don't take up a lot of space.
Right.
So I might have like a box like this, just stuffed full of random old
Little
pieces.
treasures,
Yeah, and then I 10 years ago, I wasn't interested. But then now I look at it, I'm like, that would make a great pendant, or, you know. And I think my skills, I can do more now. So I wouldn't have been able to do anything with it back in the day.
Right.
So what's my point? Oh, I used to do a lot of work for this woman that owned a boutique in Pinnacle Peak. Her name was Dominique. She's lovely. And she would ask me to do things. She's like, can you do this? And she would describe something. And even in my head, I was like, I don't know if I could do that. But I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Because I was like, I'm gonna figure out how to do this. And it would be something really intricate, like some kind of waterfall necklace with like beads and discs and all sorts of things. And then I would just figure it out. And I think that she really pushed me. So I used to call her my muse, because she would have me do things I would have never attempted on my own.
Oh, that's
but I
lovely.
felt like, I was, I kind of had to, which is good. That's how I work best.
I love that, like, atmosphere of growth. That's so important.
Yeah. I think, I tend to do better when I'm sort of pushed into a corner. Like
Dwell under pressure.
Yes, or like I'm like something that I don't think I can do, and then I say, I'm making name tags right now for a company.
Oh, neat.
Magnetic name tags. And that, when they asked me, I was like, I think I can do that. and it took a while to get like, what they wanted, but I just like to push myself to do different things.
And you mentioned earlier how you posted on social media and people immediately loved it. I think that's a cool thing about creating today, is you can get that immediate feedback.
Exactly.
So how has that kind of shifted what you make, or the volume of things you make?
I think that, oh God, I mean, I tell people that complain about Instagram for whatever reason, I'm like, if it wasn't for Instagram and Facebook, I don't know like how I would be reaching so many people. Because it used to be I would send out emails.
Right.
I would send out emails and be like, I'm going to be at this show. Hope you can make it. And it would like be 20 people. So it just seemed like such a, like, I think I used to post things on my regular Facebook, and I look at those pictures now, like on my On This Day, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so embarrassing. It's like you can barely see, it's all blurry. Yeah. But I would still sell things even that way though. But getting my own Instagram or my Facebook page that's just for jewelry, and then like you have to get a certain number of likes to get your name, like Facebook, Mermaid Jewelry Designs, right? And then Instagram when that was new. And I am definitely somebody that hates new things. Like when Instagram was new, I was like, ugh. And then I got used to it, and I really like it, and I love helping people that are new to Instagram. Like, this is what you do, and it's so great, and do this, and because a lot of people are really overwhelmed by
that you're
Instagram.
Already creating, and then you have to think about a way to market yourself on top of that. And I think that's what a lot of creatives struggle with that.
It's definitely something that I've been working harder at for sure, and I think you have to. Yeah. It's like the theory of doing a trunk show like I used to do. I used to think, oh, it's the jewelry. It'll sell itself. I could just lay it on the table, just flat.
Pretty. Yes.
Just lay it all in lines on the table, and then people will buy it. Like, why? And then I did a show at Purple Lizard Boutique.
I love Purple Lizard.
And Marguerite set up a little table for me to do a little trunk show. It was like this big. Like the table was literally like this big, and I was like, how am I going to put all my stuff on there? And then she's like, oh, I have all these props for you, and she like put all these like things, and I was like, oh, I never would have thought of that. And so that definitely I've learned a lot from really great people in the business. And then Olivani is another boutique that I used to sell to, and Lonnie is the master of display, and she taught me about like burlap and just like a lot of those things. It's important
to showcase and for selling as well. Because you want a blank canvas, but also with maybe some texture.
Height. I'm all about height.
We'll talk about like this, for example, is a really interesting display.
So
and
this
then some beautiful necklaces.
A lot of my pieces are literally found like in the garbage in an alley. This piece was actually a shelf in this building originally. So it was the Steve, the designer architect that was here before. It was over there. They covered up the hole, but that piece just came out like a shelf. And I think they used to like display stuff on it. But I saw that and I was like, oh, I like that. I'm gonna use that. What else? I mean, like a lot of this stuff is just like my friend Janine from Nina and Grapey made those cute little
like little hanging plants,
macrame plant things, and then the air plants I love. I got introduced to them by Marcy at Lucky Air Plants.
You've written about them?
Yes,
we love them too.
Oh my gosh, she introduced me to the air plant, and I'm like, oh, finally a plant I can't kill. And then I killed them all. There's one now. Look, it's dead. But like these screens were from the original building.
Oh, neat.
And I still don't really know what I'm doing with these screens. This ceiling was built by Steve, the artist that was here before. Like he did this all himself.
Neat. I like the slats and the
I
dimension.
know. And he made me that sign out of my Mermaid jewelry sign out of metal, an old bookcase. That's like one of the shelves or one of the walls. So stuff like that. Cool. Like I really love found objects. I'm like it's really hard to drive through, like down a street where I can see something out of my eye, the corner of my eye in an alley. I'm both. My family won't let me do it if I'm with them. I have to do it on my own.
Go back on your own time later.
Yes, I know it's hard though because they're always gone.
That's so funny. Well, and so if you want to talk a little bit about some specific things, maybe, what are you designing lately? What are some of kind of your classics that you turn to again and again? And what are some ways you experiment as you feel that season? So
I feel like I'm always experimenting. My classics are, and I always tell people because like I don't always have them, but like these hoops I've been doing for 20 plus years. Wow. These are my large 14 karat gold fill.
They're so
hammered
narrow,
hoops.
even though you've been doing
You know what?
Long.
I originally was doing a bigger one. That was my biggest seller with my extra large, and I still have people that want the extra large, but this is a large, and then I do a smaller and a medium. And yeah, that's something I do in sterling and in gold, and those are big, big sellers. And what else? I don't know. I tend to do very like wearable, comfortable, delicate, like things, everyday stuff that you can dress up if you want to, but you can just wear it every day. These little continuous hoops are another big seller for me. Like they're another thing, just comfortable
So
and
lightweight.
Yeah.
You could just wear those. You could just leave them on, and then
I
you'll
do.
feel like, oh, my ears hurt.
So I have 3 holes. I had all of my holes filled with these little hoops, and then the other day I was driving my daughter to school, and she's like, "I don't have any earrings in," and she's like eyeing my hoops. So I took them out and gave them to her. So now my lobes are lonely. I usually have them up here. But the horseshoe earring is another thing that's just like, I don't make it for a year, and then I make them and people go crazy. So it's kind of a comfortable everyday earring.
I feel like those pull-throughs are kind of having a moment right now.
Yeah, they call them threaders or whatever.
Yeah.
I always just call them horseshoes because they kind of look like horseshoes.
Yeah.
And then I used to do a ton of brass bangles, and I realized that they're really, really hard on me physically. I didn't realize, because I used to make them, I would be so sore because it's really hard to bend this. So, and you have to hammer. So when I make them, I usually make them in batches. So I have to make another batch of those because I have one left. And then
beautiful. It looks like Greek goddess to me. That's what it makes me think of when I see those.
I love the way they look, and I kind of miss having a bunch of those because I do like the way they look. And then the stretchy bracelets were just something that I started making just here and there. And then the tag that says Harmony Heals was it was a kind of like a little tagline that Julia, actually, the former owner of the Hive, I'm pretty sure, I usually give her credit for this because I'm pretty sure she's the one that came up with the Harmony Heals. And then I was stamping out so many of them that I just got I got a stamp made because I used to do each one letter by letter.
Oh wow, that's
and yeah, it was very. Where is it? Oh, here. So this is like the metal stamp. So I just have to go one time, clink, and then it's done. Whereas I used to do it letter by letter, H, H, A, A. And then I would do like a bunch of them, and then I would notice that I did all the A's upside down. Because I have to do them all over again. But they were, the Harmony Heals was started because my daughter Harmony, in 2016, got a very rare form of cancer. And it was sort of like, it kept me going to have like, and I, it was really hard to make my normal stuff. And I wanted to keep making stuff and selling stuff because I had to. So it was kind of a easy thing that I could make at the hospital and
keep your hands busy.
Keep my hands,
distract your mind.
And it's just sort of a nice sentiment, Harmony Heals.
It is. It keeps her alive.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Exactly.
Love it. And I personally have been very taken by your pearl collection, which is, I guess, for spring.
Pearls. Yes, and like I said, they're mostly the individual ones that I sold the originals, but yeah, the pearls. I love pearls. I love pearls and I love turquoise. Those are the two things that I have the most of. Like I have these little drawers. Like this is pearls.
Oh, love.
All my other drawers are little tiny, and then the bottom is pearls. And then I have so much turquoise that they're not even in a drawer. I have them in like containers down there where they're all, I can actually go back there and take them out if you want.
Well, we are in Arizona. You must have some turquoise.
Exactly. So all of these are filled with turquoise. And it was a labor of love to organize them by size and by, like where it came from. And this was a project. I had everything, all of this mixed together in a huge thing. And I thought, I'm just gonna sit down, I'm gonna just start organizing them. And then once I got started, it's like doing a puzzle. Once I got started, I couldn't stop until I had all of them in their own little, section.
So much of jewelry making, it seems, is very delicate work, very repetitive work?
Yes.
Do you find that to be soothing? Is it kind of meditative for you?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And I know that that is a very common thing, and people say you must be so patient, and I'm
Right.
not. I'm not patient at all. I have very little patience, and I'd be the first to admit that. And anybody who knows me would probably say the same. But when I have to do like a big order of something that is like a beaded bracelet, maybe like where I need to make 15 of the same beaded bracelet, it definitely is hard. It's hard to do something like that. So I will put it off and do other things. And that's another thing people who know me will know. I have a really hard time with like the I have to do's, like, so, and then I'll be like, I'll just make these other things that I want to make,
Yes.
and I'll do that later.
Yes.
And then it'll be 8 o'clock and I'll be still, I'll be here still. I'm like, oh, I should probably get started on that. So yeah, so I don't, it's not my favorite thing to do is repetitive things. I do like to do, each thing is different and like, like wire wrapping and adding things and,
Right.
and kind of creating as I go, like maybe doing like a, like a wire wrap because you don't know where it's going and it's more intuitive.
Right. A little more improvisational.
Yeah,
not so,
exactly.
like, you have to plan it out.
Right. So I have to look at it and figure out how I'm going to make it happen. And just like, coming up with something different or like figuring something out. I tend to have more fun doing that. But so the repetitive stuff is not
for you.
meditative. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I just watch TV while I work, or I
Get lost in the process.
Yes,
they say,
Madeline
yes.
was saying that she watches shows, and I do that sometimes. Like if I have to do something where there's a lot of the same thing where I don't have to think, then I'll put a little show on my phone, or like maybe I'll listen to a podcast or something.
Yeah.
I love listening to podcasts. So, but it's not my favorite thing to do.
And now I also wanted to talk, you are nominated for some of our Best of the Valley Awards this year, and you're a past winner. So can you talk a little bit about how does it feel to be recognized by local publications? And does that have a good impact on business? You know what?
Honestly, I don't think that part of it matters because like in the early 2000s, I was in there, what's it called? There was an insert in the Arizona Republic. Megan Finnerty used to put it together.
Yes, the style section. I read it.
Yes, and I loved that. I remember going to the coffee, like Starbucks or whatever, and like opening it up and like, oh. And I remember seeing she like a featured artist, whatever, and I was like, and so I contacted her. And that's so not me, by the way. I did it with you though because I was like, I want to do that. And then I did it with Megan Finnerty, and I was like, and she's like, okay. She was kind of taken aback. She's like, well, why don't you bring your things down to the studio? And and then I still to this day, I love her. She's like the best. She wrote a little article about me, and my older daughter, who's now almost 18, was like 2 at the time. And it was so cool. I mean, I love it. I love to have those things, but it doesn't bring in business. I think if anything, it just sort of like makes you seem legit.
Interesting. Yes, I'm legitimized people.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, there's an article about me, so I must be legitimate. It's just, of course I love it.
There's something about the power of print. I still get excited to see my own byline, and I've been doing this a long time.
I love it. I love it. And that's another thing about Instagram is you feel like people are getting to know you. So it's almost like you're always sort of on some sort of, I don't know. You're always like sort of out there. So so people know me that I don't know. And before I had the studio, people would come to my house and buy things for years.
Wow.
Years. I would have them come in, and I would usually schedule it during like a nap time. And then they'd come into the kitchen, and I'd have my trunk, and I'd lay all my stuff out on the kitchen table, and we'd have coffee or drinks or whatever, what time of day it was. And that's how I sold a lot of my stuff. And then people would bring their friends, and that gets harder as kids get older. And they want to be a part of the conversation. Or even if my husband Paul was home, that was a problem because he'd want to talk. He'd want to be a part of the fun. I don't remember what my point was.
Talking about publications and Instagram. And connecting with people.
Yeah. So like people have so people have come to my house so much, and then there's people that come in here and I see their face and they look familiar to me because they've probably been sitting at my kitchen table, but
Right.
I've had so many people sitting at my kitchen table. Sometimes I'm like, wait, do I know them?
Ooh, yeah. When you see people out of context. Yeah.
Right. So it's been one of my favorite things about doing this, as much as I love making jewelry and seeing it on people, is I love just the fact that I've been able to meet so many great people. Like that's probably been the best part.
Yeah.
Is like building relationships with people that I wouldn't have any other, I wouldn't know otherwise.
Right. I think that's a beautiful part of being a maker is you get to meet the people,
Yeah.
and it's a good thing for customers as well. They
Right.
get to meet the person who created
Yeah.
the beautiful thing they're enjoying.
I love it. I mean, I'll have like these long, in-depth conversations with people that came in here once. They don't buy anything, and they might not even take my card, and then they'll leave, and I'll and I'm like, I didn't just sell anything, but I just had like a really great interaction with somebody, and maybe someday she wants a ring, maybe she'll come back. So I think that's so much more important. Just like people like to go to stores where they like the people first.
The vibe is a big.
Or the restaurant where the waitresses are so nice, or the people that work there are so great, and the food is good, but like you go there first and foremost because you like the whole experience. And that's another thing about my studio that I love. People can come in and hang out.
Yeah, it feels like a nice little oasis.
Yeah.
Creativity and calm.
I just added a little chair. So I was reading a book about feng shui, which I've always been vaguely kind of aware of and sort of interested in. And I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying that on the west side of your workspace should be something where you are actually doing some sort of art. And if it's not feasible, because it really isn't for me to be back in the corner, to make it a place where you put art, artsy things. So I put all those books there.
Love.
I just did that a couple days ago,
Looks great.
because it was sort of a dead corner. Like there wasn't really anything really happening in that corner.
And now it feels so homey. And like when I go to people's houses, I love to be nosy in their books.
Yes.
So to be able to do that in the
I'm
store.
always like, look,
Yes.
look at the books. I know, I love them too. I have been carrying all these art books around with me, trying to force them on people. I'm like, I'll just display them here.
And now, having been in the business this long, you mentioned earlier you mentor people on Instagram. Are there any other words of wisdom you'd have for aspiring creatives, maybe looking to, take their hobby and turn it into a business?
I feel like now, okay, so my advice would be to just go onto YouTube, go and do research and stuff. I just feel like I had to sort of feel all of it out, and it was we didn't, there was no Instagram or anything. So by the time I got to the Instagram and figured that out, I just feel like people are so much more savvy these days. Like the words of advice that I would offer is get good at what you're doing first before you worry about, like, people are like, oh, I'm going to make jewelry and I'm going to get a website and I'm going to get trademarked and everything. It's like, just work on your jewelry, work on that, and then worry about all the other stuff, because that's the most important thing. People don't care if your name is trademarked or if you have a website when you're new. You can post on Instagram every day and sell stuff that way. You really can. I mean, I have a website, mermaidjewelry.com, but and I started that. It'll be 2 years this summer. Before that, I was doing something similar to Etsy called Spreezy, and Spreezy is not around anymore. Like, they got sold out, so I lost that whole platform.
Boy.
So I kind of had to start from scratch. But I'm so happy I did, because by the time the pandemic came, I was already all like hooked up online.
Yes, I think the pandemic really made a lot of local businesses realize, like, just put a little more effort into online, and it can help sustain you.
So important. I know, so important. I would, if I could have seen into the future, I would have been very happy that I did it.
Yes.
Because without that, I mean, I can sell a lot of things online through Instagram, but it's just not the same, because you can get all different kinds of people that, like, just happen to come across your website. So yeah, I'm really happy about the website. It's been great. And that's another thing I tell people. If you're going to do a website, just do it. It's not that hard.
Right.
It's not that expensive.
And free to not that expensive.
You can do free. The one that I'm doing is through Shopify, and I think it's like $31 a month.
That's great.
So worth it. You can do everything on your phone. Yeah, it's really worth it.
And kind of going back to the pandemic, obviously it was a challenging year for everyone,
Yeah.
but especially people who, your business is all about people being here and experiencing your things. Yes. So, how do you envision it going forward? Are you hopeful for 2021? Are you, nervous? How are you
I
feeling?
feel like my year's been pretty good.
That's good.
It's been pretty good, and I'm really happy about that. And a lot of it is online stuff. And another thing I started doing are my live flash sales.
Okay.
I have been doing flash sales for years, where I post a photo and like a low price, and then the first person that comments that sold gets it. And those had always done really well, but I did when live was new on Instagram.
Live.
Somebody was like, "Oh, you should do a live." I'm like, "Well, I'll just do a little live before the show." And so the before the show live that I did for 5 minutes, there were like all these people were joining, and so I felt I had this audience, and I was like, "Okay, so I put this necklace, I'm in it, So I sold something during that live, and then I did my regular show where I just kept posting photos, which is a lot of work. You have to take the photos, crop them,
Edit.
write all the stuff out, come up with the prices, keep track of who got what, and keep researching or refreshing, making sure that it's all going smoothly.
Right.
So somebody said, "Why don't you just do the live? That 5-minute one you did before your show was so much fun." And so I have just been doing them that way.
Cool.
And they can go on for like 2 hours. I know, it's just me like blah, blah, blah.
Like an auctioneer.
Yeah, and I usually have one person with me, a friend or my daughter Ellery, and I don't even know what I'm going to be selling, so I just kind of like go with it.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, whoever I see pop up, I'll think, "Oh, that person likes this," or "Oh, she's going to be interested in these bracelets or whatever," and so I'll say, "Hey, I've got this one," and the prices are super cheap, and people like them.
Yeah, you have very affordable prices, especially considering all the work that goes into that. And I think people don't understand that. They expect everything to be $10 because that's what it is at Walmart. And it's like, no, but this is handcrafted.
Yeah, I feel like I try to keep my prices reasonable, and I pretty much everything is priced according to the amount of work that goes into it and the materials.
Sure.
So like a lot of prices could be higher, but I feel weird, asking for more. Then as long as I'm making a profit, I'm happy. I just don't think it's necessary to like take advantage.
You could charge double though.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, those are all my prepared questions. Is there anything else that you want to add or make sure that readers know about you or your work?
No, I can't think of anything.
That's okay. We covered a lot of ground, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I'm really happy to be nominated. I'm excited about the process. It's fun to be a part of it. I actually have one of my Phoenix magazines back there.
Yeah,
I was trying to figure out a way to like display them. I have it, so I had them like out and so that.
Well, we appreciate that. And that's what I love about my job is I get to meet people like you, and sometimes develop friendships and.
Oh, that's another thing. Yeah, the other artists that I have met over the years are so awesome, and they're like doing all different kinds of things, like Madeline, and there's just so many of them. And like when you do enough shows with people, you're sort of like carnies. Like we're all pulling our stuff in, setting up, and then we're all pulling our stuff. And there's Danielle. So yeah, you get to know these other people, and it's fun. It's like it was like my little carny world on the side.
And then also with regulars, do you have any collectors over the years, regular customers, and have you made a lot of friendships with them?
I do. I have a lot of people that I would put in that category. I wouldn't call them collectors because it's not like
I understand. Yes, you're being humble, but yes.
But people who. Like I have a lot of people like that, and I love that about them. Some people where I'm like, I think you have enough jewelry. I'm gonna need to cut you off. But yeah, and like a lot of people will come to me because they know that I can come up with something. Like, can you, whatever, like a 8 bracelets for. I'm doing one right now. In fact, it's for a birthday, and my good friend Angel is the master of the. Cute, like a gift for everybody for whatever,
like
and then these little tags will say something cute on them, like she'll say have them all say whatever. I'm not going to say because the person that is going to be getting this gift could watch this, but yeah, I have a lot of people that do special gifts, and like Mother's Day is coming, and like that's usually a time when, you know, people will want like a Mother's Day necklace or something with birthstones or, you know, that kind of stuff.
Or like hand stamp
Yeah,
things, like
hand
you
stamp
said.
things,
Yeah.
or I do engraving, and yeah, it's a fun thing to do. I feel very lucky. I feel very lucky that I get to do this. It's ridiculous that I get to come here every day.
And bring people joy with your creations.
And make jewelry.
Yeah.
I bring probably more joy to myself.
Well, that's good because then it flows out to others.
Yes. It's a fun job.
Keri, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure getting to know
Yes.
you and talking about your cool stuff, and we
Yeah.
appreciate you having us.